Hi all, welcome back to a new post today. And yesterday the government took a very big step towards the implementation of the national education policy that was released very recently in 2020. So a step towards that, this was shortlisting of 9,000 schools under the program called as PM SHRI. So the central government shortlisted 9,000 schools from all of the country for implementing a centrally sponsored scheme called as PM SHRI. So this program has a lot of many special features, and mainly it is developed to implement the national education policy. So these will be model schools on the basis of the national education policy, and they will be models for other schools around them so that they can learn from these schools how to implement the national education policy of 2020. Let us quickly get into the details. So this scheme PM SHRI, which is a new centrally sponsored scheme, and it is called as the Prime Minister Schools for Rising India. It was started in 2022 in the aftermath of the release of the National Education Policy 2020. Let me tell you that this education policy, which was brought out in 2020, was brought about after a long gap because the last one was brought out in 1986. So almost a gap of 14 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so these schools will be modeled on the national education policy. So all the components of the national education policy 2020 will be implemented in these schools. Now these schools will be 14,500 in number, and yesterday 9,000 schools have been shortlisted for this program. So they are basically set up to showcase the features of the national education policy 2020, and these will be model schools for the other schools that are vicinity of them. Now these schools are already the existing schools that are run by the central, state and the local governments. There are various Kendriya Vidyalayas, Navodaya Vidyalayas that will be existing schools that are shortlisted to be model schools under the national education policy, and they are going to be called as PM SHRI schools. So under the scheme, the provision of setting up a 14,500 PM SHRI schools by strengthening the existing schools from amongst the schools managed by the central and the state government, and the duration of the scheme for implementing all these features of the new education policy or the national education policy is from 2022 to 2026-27. So for a 5-year period. After that, it will be the responsibility of the states and the union territories to continue to manage all the benchmarks that have been developed and maintained in these schools. Now the selection of the PM SHRI schools is based on certain criteria, and there is a challenge mode where the schools will compete, and based on certain criteria the various schools will be selected to be model schools in the vicinity area and based on the NEP. So this will be a 3-stage process, so I'm not going to go into that. But then what are the special features that these schools will have, that they are called as exemplar or model schools on the new education policy of 2020? So number one, first of all, they will provide high quality education based on the diverse background, different academic abilities, and also keeping in mind the multilingual needs of the country. And it will be a totally learning from experience environment. Number two, they will provide leadership to the other schools in their vicinity by providing mentorship to the other schools how to develop and how to implement the national education policy of 2020. Number three, they will be developed as green schools. So all the environmentally friendly measures like solar panels for energy, LED lights, nutrition gardens with natural farming, waste management, plastic free environment totally, water conservation, harvesting, study of tradition and practices related to protection of environment, climate change related hackathons, awareness generation to the reuse, recycle lifestyle. All of these components, which may be not ingrained in the schools now, will be a part and parcel of the everyday life of the school. Number four, they will be experience based learning, inquiry driven and discovery oriented. So basically it is a play toy based learning in the foundational years. It will be experience based learning once they go to the higher class. There will be discussion based. It will be enjoyable. The pedagogy adopted in the school will be totally based on experiments. So this is number four. Number five, the learning outcomes of the child will be focused on. So assessment levels will be on the basis of understanding and application of this very understanding and knowledge in the real life situations, and it will be competency based. However, they haven't released how this assessment will be done, so they are still working on that. Now, number 6, focus will be on teaching the skills that are needed for the local industry, enhancing employability, and the main focus will be to enhance better employment opportunities that are being explored. Number 7, there will be a school quality assessment framework that will be developed and specifying the key performance indicators to measure the outcomes basically. And the last one is that the quality evaluation of these schools will be done on a regular interval. So the major beneficiaries of the schools are all the students that will be enrolled in these schools or the existing schools, the schools of which are going to be upgraded. So now there will be 18 lakh students that will be direct beneficiaries of this PM SHRI program. Now let us go into some of the major components or the features of the national education policy which has been brought out recently, and on the basis of which this PM SHRI program has been brought about as a central sector program to develop the schools based on the National Education Policy 2020. So looking at the core features of this National Education Policy 2020, it is a policy with regard to all the levels of education and for rural and urban areas as well. So covering the entire education sector of the country. It aims at ensuring universal access to all levels of schooling from the pre-primary to grade 12. There will be a new curriculum and a pedagogical structure for all the levels of learning. There will be establishment of a national mission for foundational literacy and numeracy, focusing on foundational literacy and numerical skills of the students. There will be emphasis on promoting multilingualism. Now the students will be taught up to a certain class in their mother tongue, and after that they will be taught in the regular languages. So Indian languages are going to be the focus. So let me tell you, recently the NCERT books now have been provided in regional languages. So definitely all the languages of India in the 8th schedule, and also many other languages are being focused on, especially mother tongue based learning is being focused in the national education policy. There will be assessment reforms, the way the board exams are going to be function and being conducted. There will be setting up of new assessment centers called as Parak, and there will be a gender inclusion fund. There will be a special education zone for disadvantaged regions and groups. There will be a national testing agency to conduct all the common entrance exam for the higher education institutions, and there will be a single overarching umbrella body for promoting higher education sector, including your teacher education and excluding medical and legal education. So this is called as the Higher Education Commission of India. The functions, composition, etc. of which have to still be come out. So there will be expansion, especially for distance learning. For those who really cannot afford to go to regular schooling or be a day scholar, there will be expansion of open and distance learning, and increase the gross enrollment ratio so that education reaches everyone irrespective of their economical background. There will be professional education will become an integral part of higher education system. So there will be professional education involved in your basic academic curriculum as well. The goal is to achieve 100% youth and adult literacy in the country, and there will be internationalization of education. So there are some time tested goals that are going to be achieved by the new education policy of 2020. The aim is to increase the gross enrollment ratio by 100% in the pre-primary schools, secondary schools by 2030, whereas the gross enrollment ratio in higher education and vocational education will be increased from just about 26% in 2018 to 50% by 2035. So the main aim is to reform the education system by 2030, and we are just 8 years away from it. So now 9,000 schools have been shortlisted for PM SHRI. Definitely it is a awaited step to see what exactly and how exactly the new education policy is going to be implemented in these schools, so that this lays a background for other schools to take in from them. I hope this information was really helpful to you all, and if you did, please do follow for more updates, and I shall see you in my next post. Happy learning.